Harrison Ford gives his thoughts on the next Indiana Jones, Sonic gets delayed, and the new Terminator trailer just dropped. So let's break it down in Super Dario news. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
It's a me,
Dario!
Woohoo! Let's go!
Okay, so we have a bunch of fun stuff that I want to get into, but first let me give you a quick reminder that Super Dario World is now officially part of the iHeartRadio network and a part of the show's podcast network, which means that you can find it in the iHeartRadio app. Just type in the show presents Super Dario World, it should appear right there, or just Super Dario World, it should appear right there as well. You can also find it on the Rock 1053 page. Just go to rock1053.com, click on the podcast tab, you'll find it right there, or I update a daily article and follow along with the show as well. You can also find me via my Instagram at Dario the Show. Just click on my bio. There's a link right there. That's also the best place to reach out to me for any comments, questions, or suggestions. I always appreciate hearing from you. And since I haven't gotten any updates yet, that means that you can still find the show on SoundCloud and iTunes, also YouTube. Just type in Super Dario World Podcast. You'll find it right there. I will keep you updated as soon as I start phasing out from there. This whole process is very annoying, so I decided that if at the beginning of the week I haven't heard anything, that means that at least for that week it'll still be there. So for this week, there will be no changes. It will still be on SoundCloud, it will still be on YouTube, and it'll still be on iTunes. So no changes need to be made this week. I decided this is getting ridiculous. Anyway, let's move on to Super Dario World, where I break down the big news stories or articles or trailers that dropped during the weekend and that we might have missed. So let's get started. Let me get these two out of the way real quick. One of the biggest news that came down is that the World Health Organization has now considered gaming disorder an official illness, and there's a lot in there. There's a lot that I really want to get into, and I decided, you know what, I teased it yesterday, but I think this deserves its own podcast, so I'm going to save it for tomorrow. That's what I'm going to talk about tomorrow, because there's a lot, and mental disorders and all that stuff is something that I find fascinating, so I want to get deeper into it, so I'm going to save that for tomorrow, but just so you know the headline, the World Health Organization has now considered gaming disorder an official illness. Now, there's also an article that we talked about during the show about an Oxford professor that thinks aliens are among us. And if you guys remember, if any of you listened to my previous podcast, I believe it was episode 6, Apocalypse Now, you probably know that I'm into kind of crazy theories. So this one is super interesting, and also I believe it deserves its own podcast. I might put these two articles together and break them down tomorrow, but I might keep them separate because I think there's enough meat on the bone for them to have their own segment because they're just batshit crazy. Anyway, let's move on. A new poll came out asking who people wanted to be the next Indiana Jones after Harrison Ford, because Harrison Ford will be appearing as Indiana Jones. I believe it's 2021. It's slated for release July 2021, the 5th Indiana Jones movie. But there's speculation that this might be Harrison Ford's last time as Indy. So a lot of people wanted to know, who does, America want to replace him? And a poll came out, and the two most popular choices were Bradley Cooper with 31% and Chris Pratt with 37%. Out of the two, I agree, Chris Pratt would be better. I agree with America. Bradley Cooper would be okay, but I think Chris Pratt has more of that goofy charm that Indiana Jones has. Anyway, so Harrison Ford was asked, who do you think should be the next Indiana Jones? And his answer was, and I quote, nobody's going to be Indiana Jones. Don't you get it? I'm Indiana Jones. When I'm gone, he's gone. It's easy. End quote. So I love that. I mean, you imagine somebody asking who's going to be your replacement? Who would you like to be your replacement for something? It's like, literally, they're saying, you're too old for this guy. You're too old for this job. Who would you like to replace you? Who do you think is a younger, better version of you? Which is kind of fucked up. And by the way, nobody can recreate what Harrison Ford did. He had an it factor. He was great. Also, Indiana Jones is a hero of a particular time and a particular place. I don't think he's aging that well. If the crystal skull represents anything, it shows that Indiana Jones has not been aging that well. Also, the new Solo movie showed that it's hard to recast such an iconic role. But anyway, I found that funny. But let's move on. So I've talked about the upcoming live-action Sonic movie, Sonic the Hedgehog movie, a bit on my podcast. I did a full one about how much I hated Sonic's look, and then I did an update about Sony giving people notice that we listened to how much you hated Sonic's look, so we're going to be fixing it, and we're going to be changing it for the upcoming movie. Now, there's another update, and that's that Sonic the Hedgehog has been delayed until 2020. Supposedly, the release date is February 14th. That's Valentine's Day, for those of you who didn't know. Valentine's Day 2020. So, the reason why is because they are, quote, taking a little more time to make Sonic just right, end quote. So I don't hate that. You know what? Take as much time as you need. Just do not give us that abomination again. It was horrible. The classic Sonic already has a cool enough design. Just stick with that one. Anyway, that's your update there. Moving on. So the trailer for the next Terminator movie dropped it dropped last week, but I didn't have time to talk about it because I was busy with Game of Thrones stuff. But yeah, the title for the film is going to be Terminator Dark Fate, and it's set to be released November 1st of this year. Now, there's a lot of interesting things about this movie. First off, that it's being produced by James Cameron again. James Cameron directed the original Terminator and Terminator 2, one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time. I don't care what anybody says. Anyway, it's supposed to have the return of Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator and Sarah Connor, respectively. But the interesting thing here is that they're going to ignore... There's a lot of Terminator movies that were done, like Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, Terminator Salvation, Terminator Genesis. And James Cameron basically said, yeah, you know what? We're going to ignore all that. We're going to pretend like that didn't happen. And this is going to count as Terminator 3. So Terminator 2 Judgment Day ended, and we're going to follow that timeline into Terminator Dark Fate. So nothing else matters other than that. So it should be interesting. James Cameron has a very particular way of writing stories. He has a very particular way of making movies that I like. He has a lot of rules for himself. He's a perfectionist, and the dude knows action films. So, I mean, it's not being directed by him. It's being directed by Tim Miller, who did Deadpool, who's also a great action director. So I'm hoping that the marriage of those two is going to bring out something fruitful. The trailer looks very interesting, and I think it takes place in Mexico, because there's a sign at the beginning of the trailer that says, Bienvenidos a la Ciudad de Mexico. So, I mean, that means welcome to Mexico City. So I honestly have no idea what this movie is going to be about. From what I understand, it looks like kind of there's a new Sarah Connor. Well, not exactly a new Sarah Connor. So there's another girl who's probably going to be the mother of the Savior, and they're sending a Terminator from the future to kill her, and a Terminator from the future to protect her. So, and now Linda Hamilton is protecting her too. I don't understand what's happening, but it's interesting. The new villain Terminator looks really cool. He looks like a mixture of two Terminators built into one liquid, one solid. They kind of fuse together. So it has potential. I also like the girl that they picked as the Terminator, Mackenzie Davis. She makes a brief appearance in Blade Runner 2049, which is a great movie, by the way. So she's already done a cyborg before. So it could go either way, but I'm trusting James Cameron on this one. Another trailer that dropped over the weekend that I found super interesting is The Art of Self-Defense, starring Jesse Eisenberg. You might remember Jesse Eisenberg from The Social Network. Now, the movie's supposed to be a dark comedy, and the plot is basically, from what I understood from the trailer and what I've read, is about a guy who was attacked at a random street and decides to enlist in a local dojo to learn how to defend himself, except the sensei is kind of mysterious and a little crazy. And so he ends up discovering a sinister world of fraternity, violence, and hypermasculinity. It's weird. Watch the trailer. The movie looks really weird, but really, if you're into dark comedies, and I am, then you're probably going to enjoy it. I think it looks fantastic. It's set to come out on July 12th, and like I said, just type in The Art of Self-Defense on YouTube. You'll find the trailer right there. Let me know what you think. But okay, let's move on to more movie news. Okay, this one, I've been hearing about this movie for over a decade, legit over a decade. But supposedly, it finally has a release date and it finally has a director. So, Akira is set to be released on May 2021, and Taika Waititi is set to direct it. Now, Taika Waititi directed Thor Ragnarok, and he's a pretty good director. I like his comedic timing. The dude's really good. And for those of you who don't know, Akira is an anime that came out in the 80s. It's a sci-fi movie considered among one of the greatest animes of all time. And here's the plot. Set in a future city environment called New Manhattan, the sci-fi epic follows the leader of a biker gang who must save his best friend, who has been experimented on by the government, causing him to develop dangerous and destructive psychokinetic powers. So there's the plot. Honestly, it doesn't do it justice. The movie is fantastic. It's phenomenal. It's very deep. But this title has been in production hell since frickin' forever. All the way back to 2008 when Leonardo DiCaprio's producing company got the rights to it. It's been through multiple directors, multiple stars, multiple everything. So the fact that it has a release date now gives me a little bit of hope, and that they're saying that Taika Waititi is attached to it gives me a little bit of hope, but I don't know. I usually don't like talking about these type of announcements because they're not confirmed, but like I said, they're giving it a release date. So this is the best news that the Akira movie has gotten in a decade. So hopefully it comes to pass, and hopefully it doesn't suck like most of the other anime adaptations. But anyway, let's move on. In streaming news, the newest teaser for Marvel's Jessica Jones, the final season, was released over the weekend, and it finally has a release date. So, according to Netflix, the final season of Jessica Jones will be on Netflix on June 14th. I have no idea what it's going to be about. I have no idea about anything because they haven't released any trailer. It comes out in, 3 weeks, and we know nothing about it. So, the first season was really good. The second was meh. It was whatever. So, hopefully they get their shit together and they close it with a bang. Otherwise, that was going to be a very sad end for the Marvel Universe on Netflix. But, okay, that's it for that one. Let's move on. It was announced that this one is really weird. I don't understand this one, but there was a show on Funny or Die called Between Two Ferns with Zach Galifianakis. The show was hysterical. It basically consisted of Zach Galifianakis interviewing another celebrity while sitting between two ferns. Ferns are plants, by the way, for those of you who didn't know. I did not know what a fern was until I started watching the show. I called them differently. They're called differently in Spanish, okay? Screw you. Anyway, so this show's whole shtick is that the interviews are super awkward, super uncomfortable, and basically the guest kind of just insults Zach Galifianakis. That's kind of the whole deal, right? But it was announced that Netflix will be making a Between Two Ferns, the movie. Now, it sounds fantastic, all right? It sounds fantastic. Zach Galifianakis is returning, but I don't see how you're going to make this into a movie. I mean, here's the official description according to Netflix. Zach Galifianakis dreamed of becoming a star, but when Will Ferrell discovered his public access TV show, Between Two Ferns, and uploaded it to Funny or Die, Zach became a viral laughingstock. Now, Zach and his crew are taking a road trip to complete a series of high-profile celebrity interviews and restore his reputation. End quote. So, I mean, on paper it sounds funny, but what's exactly going to happen here? I mean, I don't get it, okay? And I get that's part of the joke. I understand this is part of the joke, but I don't get it. I don't know how you're going to fill an hour. You're actually going to give it a story, but it's a parody. It's a mockery. Whoa, I don't get it. I don't get it, but it sounds fantastic. I loved Between Two Ferns. The character of Zach Galifianakis is super awkward. I don't know how you're going to fill an hour and a half, at least, of Zach Galifianakis being really awkward. I don't know. It's too much. I don't know. I have no idea what is happening here. It's being directed by a guy who's never heard before. Fortunately, it's also being written by Zach Galifianakis, who's hysterical. And I'm guessing in some capacity, there's no casting news either. I mean, there's a bunch of rumors that maybe Bradley Cooper, Keanu Reeves, David Letterman. I just read Will Ferrell has to do something with this. I'm assuming he's going to show up, but there's no news. It's just, okay. The only thing we know is that it will be released on Netflix September 20th, and that I'm going to watch it because it sounds fantastic. It sounds incredibly stupid. I recommend you watch the show. Go to Funny or Die. Watch the interviews Between Two Ferns. My favorites are the ones with Brad Pitt and Natalie Portman. I think the Natalie Portman one is the best one, but you can choose for yourself. I don't know what to expect. It's really weird. I'm still trying to process this. I went through a whole bunch of information that I could find, and nothing really makes any sense. But it's being made by a guy who knows his comedy. The show has, 21 episodes, and they're all great. So hopefully it does well, and hopefully they don't fuck this one up. But okay, moving on. And the last news of the day, the last thing that I missed, this actually came out today, so I figured I'd just add it here. The Nintendo Switch announced that it was getting a massive multiplayer online game. Now, I got asked this question recently by a listener, and he wanted to get my thoughts on massive multiplayer online games. My answer is that I don't like them. It's not my thing. I don't like playing with other people online. To me, video gaming is usually my time. And I love split screen. I love interacting with other humans in the room with me. But this whole online thing, I don't know. I don't like the fact that I can't hit you over the internet, you know? If that make any sense? I don't usually hit people when I'm playing, but you have the option. You can actually interact with somebody there. You can kind of mess with each other. It makes things more fun. Over the internet is not as much fun. Also, if you have a crappy connection, things get weird. I don't like it. But anyway, this is big because this is going to be the first MMO that's Massive Multiplayer Online for the Nintendo Switch. At least is the first one for America. I think there was another one released in Japan, which means that other big titles might be coming. And it's actually kind of a big one. And it's going to be free to play. So the game is going to be DC Universe Online, which it's not a new game. It came out back in 2011 for the PS3, I think. And then for the PS4 2013 and the Xbox One in 2016. But I think some of those editions have been discontinued. Anyway, so they're re-releasing it for the Switch, and it's going to have its own servers, its own everything. So you're going to have, if you're playing that MMO on the Switch, you're only going to be playing with other Switch players. And the basics of the game is that you create a hero or a villain, and you fight alongside iconic characters from the DC universe, like Batman, the Joker, Wonder Woman, Superman, etc., etc. And the game really has a bunch of really positive reviews. So if it finds new life in the Nintendo Switch, this might be a game changer for it. It might be a game changer for that franchise and for the Switch in general, because it means it's going to start dipping its toes into MMOs, which, again, I don't love, but I don't care because I don't have to play them. You know what I'm saying? I might check this one out because it's going to be free to play. And I that's the thing that I don't like, that you have to keep paying and paying and paying. Just Jesus Christ. How much do you have to keep paying for these things? They're already expensive enough as it is. Why don't you just give us one set price and that can be enough? That's what I won't get into this rant again. I've ranted about this too much already. But anyway, that's it. That's the big news from over the weekend. That's the stuff that we missed. Like I said, tomorrow I will get deeper into the whole World Health Organization calling gaming disorder a disease. And maybe I might get into the aliens things as well. It depends on how deep I get into the other one, because there's a lot there. And there's a lot of fun stuff that we can just dig in a little. If you're into I hope you're into psychological stuff, because I am, and I want to get into all the consequences of all that stuff. But anyway, that's it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can always find me at Dario the Show. That's the easiest way for you to contact me. As always, thank you for listening, and have a great day.